Hey guys, welcome back to the second episode of the First Time Homebuyer series. We're going to be talking about hopping off the fence and getting into a home. We're going to talk about a couple of things that might be keeping you on the fence. And we're really going to dive in and consider a couple of factors to get you thinking, is this even something I want to do? If I did want to do it, how would I even do it? You don't know what you don't know. So the very first number one thing that I would recommend is establishing a timeline. When do you want to move? When do you need to move? Maybe your lease is up. You have a baby coming. Maybe you change jobs. I don't know what your moving situation is. It could be anything. So let's just put that as like variable X of why we're moving. Next, you need to fill in when you need to move. And so that's really an important date because you really need to make sure that the other pieces of the puzzle can fit inside of your timeline. So that's going to kind of jump us into number two, which is going to kind of focus on what are the timelines for the process. So typically, the very first thing we're going to want to get into is a pre-approval. We could typically get those the same day or a few days depending on maybe we need to get a couple of documents from you to verify some incomes or different things like that so the lender can put together the loan portfolio. Once that's kind of done, shopping really depends on how long it could take. It could take 2 days, 3 weeks, 2 months. What's the market like? How urgent are you to get into a home? How picky are you? What are you looking for? What's available? All of those are going to kind of factor in how long it can take you. Right now, the national average sits at around 30 days from the point that we have pre-approval to finding you something and getting you under contract. Once you're under contract, the typical loan process takes like 3 to 4 weeks. Sometimes it could take less. It could take the least. Usually the average is about 14, or it could take way longer, 45, 60 days. And that all just comes from everybody's situation. Maybe there was an appraisal issue. Maybe we're going to get some things on the house fixed, so we're waiting for those things. Maybe there was an issue on the other end of the table and the seller is having some issues with the house that they're going to buy, but they can't buy until they sell this house. There's a lot of things that can also factor into that, but the average is about 3 to 4 weeks. Typically, most contracts, unless the lender says otherwise, we do about 30 days from the date of contract, and that's always something that can be amended. The only additional factor that is a little bit more variable than those two bigger factors is sometimes you might not get possession on closing date. And now the only time when that would happen is if it's been agreed upon by both parties. Sometimes the sellers need a little bit of extra time to get moved out. Sometimes they're a little bit older. Sometimes that they aren't as capable and maybe they need to hire someone and that is only available, like the service is only available like 2 days after closing, or there's so many different things that could happen once again in that area, but that'll all be laid out in your contract and you should be highly informed prior when you're signing the contract that you will not get it right at closing. So the possession is kind of a little bit of a variable factor in terms of your timeline because obviously if you really need to be out of your lease or if you really need to be somewhere, you need to take that into consideration when you're putting your offer in on your home, because you offer on this home and you're going through the process thinking, oh, this is going to be great, this is going to line up with everything, and then your realtor didn't tell you that you're not getting it on closing date. Now that's thrown all of your plans into the trash can. So we really want to avoid all of that by establishing a timeline and knowing how long things are going to take to get done and putting yourself in a position. So kind of going into establishing the timeline, there's another few things that you might want to take into consideration when you're setting up your own personal timeline. So your financial situation, maybe your credit score or how your income is calculated may all be factors on why you can or can't get approved. Definitely knowing how your income and your credit need to be before you get 60 days out from needing to move, but you actually kind of need like 3 months of time to repair your credit. Now you're forced to spend another 12 months paying somebody else's rent. You really want to inform yourself so that you can be making these decisions appropriately for what your timeline is. I kind of wanted to go through and build like a example timeline with you guys. Okay, so I'm going to get into the timeline example now for you guys. So I kind of set the parameters of the example up here. So we have an idea and an example of how we start from start to finish. The parameters of this example are going to be a $200,000 house. We have 6 months left until our lease is up, and we started considering buying our first home in March. So September 15th is going to be our deadline. And so I'm going to show you guys a very comfortable timeline within this 6 months for you to not feel pressure during the home buying process and to give you plenty of time. So the easiest thing that we can do from the very beginning is we have 30 days at the minimum that it's going to take us to get your loan processed once we're under contract. Like the very last day that you could possibly be under contract is going to be August 15th is like the very last day that you could go under contract and still have enough time to close and be out of your rental. So from here, we kind of can fill in the timeline for what you're most comfortable for. But one thing you want to take into consideration too is once you've had your credit pulled from your loan application, that credit pull is good for 90 days. You want to take that into consideration too. From this March to August timeframe, we have about 5 months left of our timeline. I would really say that you're really going to want to reserve yourself at least 60 days to try and find a home. I really will say that on average, it does not take that long to get under contract, especially if you have a really fantastic realtor. But I want to go on the very farthest side of caution and give a good solid 90 days to wait for something to come on the market, maybe that is more suitable to what you're looking for, instead of having to just kind of settle for something because you're in such a big rush. Let's just go with a good 60 days. That's a really comfortable amount of time for you to be able to shop and get under contract. Now, also giving us a 60-day time frame is also going to open up this timeline and not make it so crunched. You know, August 15th is like the last day. Like, it is not really the most ideal time. And also, if we could be in your new home maybe a week or two before your lease is up, that's going to give you so much time also to move your things over, get settled in, get your apartment cleaned, get acquainted with your new home, get the utilities transferred, and you're not just rush, because moving is one of the most stressful things that people experience in their life. That's just a known statistic about being a human. I want to make this the least stressful process I possibly can to get you into your first home. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys that 60 days just to have a very comfortable timeline. So that's going to put us in June, kind of depending on how you want to look at it. Sometime in June, you want to say, okay, I'm ready to start looking at houses. So that kind of brings us to the 3 tiers of the home buying process: getting pre-approved, getting under contract, closing on your home. I would really recommend a 2 to 3 month period. I say 90 days only because sometimes, especially if you don't really know what your credit situation is, and maybe that's the reason that you've been staying off the fence about wanting to buy a home, giving you that solid 90 days really can open you up to being able to repair your credit so you're not stuck in a rental for another year. So especially if you're a first-time home buyer, you don't know anything about the process, you don't know what your credit score is, you don't know what you need to get together, I would say really submit your application 90 days before you even might want to consider looking at homes, because then you can look at your credit profile, you can see what you need to do to get yourself at an approvable credit score, to get your income documents in line. Maybe you need to go get some documents from your divorce, or you need to get child support documents to document that. This is going to give you plenty of time to get yourself in a very comfortable position to be able to move forward very seamlessly with the other 2 steps of this process. And once again, not put you in a position where you're feeling rushed and you're feeling pressure to make decisions, because you have already informed yourself and you have given yourself enough time to think through all the things that you need to do and to put yourself in a position where you are ready to go when it's time to start looking at homes. So now that we've kind of workshopped this from finish to start, let's kind of run down really quickly from start to finish. So you're in a lease, you've got 6 months left of your lease, and you are considering buying your first home. Let's say that you started thinking at the beginning of the year. So that January, February, March, you're like, I don't really know what I want to do. Maybe I should buy a home. Maybe I should extend my rental. Filling out the pre-approval application is not going to put you in any sort of credit situation where you will then become unqualified to purchase a home. It's really just going to be able to give your lender, whoever that you've chosen to work with, a good idea of what your portfolio is, so that they can kind of consider and to decide what loan category that you're going to be into, because each different loan category has different requirements. It has different credit score requirements, different debt to income ratios, several different aspects of each different loan program have different requirements. So that's just another reason why it's so important to start a little bit early and give yourself enough time and really establish a timeline that works best for you. So if you know all of the pieces of the puzzle, you can take this rough outline and you can apply this to what your situation is and say, okay, I want approximately 60 days to look for homes, I need to start here. And then if I want to give myself 60 days to make sure that my credit is in check, my income is in check, then you can kind of create your own timeline that works best for you. This is just an example of kind of how I would break down based on national averages for the amount of time it takes for things to get done. Applying for a mortgage does not mean that you have to get a mortgage either. Just because you qualified doesn't mean that you have to move forward with it. If this is a decision that you are like, I'm just not ready yet to buy a house, no worries. No worries at all. There's no pressure. Thank you guys so much for watching this week. I really hope that this video has allowed you to be able to take some of this information and some of these timeline considerations and take a look at your own situation so you can put together a plan for you and your family to walk into this process kind of with a level head and a plan so that you can make better decisions. Because if you're rushing around the whole time trying to figure out what's going on, you're not going to be able to make as informed of a decision. So we want to give you and your family the perfect amount of time and the right amount of time based on your situation to get you the best home possible and the best deal possible. So, you know, the more time we have, the best deal that we can find, the better everybody in the whole transaction is going to feel. The more rushed a transaction feels, the more stressful it is, and we don't need to add any more stress to the act of moving. That is the most stressful thing in the world. Saying from personal experience, I have moved my father like 4 times in the last year. I get it. Moving is a lot of work. So let's make buying your home the most seamless part of the transaction. I want the packing to be harder than the actual home buying process. So hopefully this was very informative for you. If you have any other questions, definitely feel free to reach out to me below or drop it in the comments section. I'll definitely be replying to those. And if you have any really big questions, I definitely can make a video response to that as well. Also, don't forget to check out, we have all of my social medias linked, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. We do have some different exclusive content on those different platforms that aren't going to be on here. So if you want even more home buying information, definitely go check out those other social media profiles linked below. You can also access my website, my email, my phone number. Any way in the world that you could possibly contact me is listed down below. Definitely do not hesitate at all to pick up the phone, give me a call, and ask me a question. I would love to answer it for you. Thank you guys so much for watching Living in Indy, and I will see you guys next time.